Welcome to this webinar session. This session will help you to understand the different funding our organisation receives, what that means for you in terms of the care that you provide, and how we as an organisation comply with the requirements of the various funding streams. We are currently in a climate of substantial reforms in Australia. We have consumer-directed care, as well as the National Disability Insurance Scheme, and we're entering a competitive marketplace. Through these reforms, the Commonwealth Government is looking to ensure that the system offers choice, puts control back into the hands of the consumer, and it encourages businesses to invest and grow, remain sustainable and affordable into the future. More than ever, you need to be flexible and agile in moving between your roles as the expert and as the enabler in the client's healthcare journey. We want you to understand the changes from a policy level, the new language and what that means with how you work with clients. At the end of the session, you should feel able to choose the correct funding source in Procura and provide the appropriate support to your clients. You will be provided with a summary sheet at the end of the session for your use out on the road. So what's happening in this space and why are we talking about funding? The government uses funding for its policies to drive change, and that's what's happening at the moment. Lots of change. We know that we have an ageing population and you're out there seeing people who are living well into their older age at home. And we also know that it's better as we age to remain active and well connected to the community. There is a need to support people to remain as well and healthy as possible. This means that we will have a sustainable healthcare system into the future for all of us who need it most. The Commonwealth aged care reforms started happening around 2013. In Victoria, we transitioned a few years later than the other states. During these extra couple of years, the state government was negotiating to retain the benefits of the Victorian community care sector. Things like our strong community care networks, training, our qualified workforce, and a coordinated service system. The HAC program was a major funding source for RDNS Limited. So what does it mean for us now that HAC has transitioned to the Commonwealth? This means that the funding is now allocated based on a person's age. So approximately 75% of clients who used to receive care under the HAC program have now been transferred from the state government to the Commonwealth Government under the Commonwealth Home Support Program, or CHSP. This program supports people who are over 65 or over 50 for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The other 25% that were covered under our HAC funding are now, that money is now used to support people who are under 65, and this program has been newly named the HAC Program for Younger People. The HAC Program for Younger People, or HAC PYP, is only in Victoria. And about 7% of that HAC PYP clients who are under 65 are estimated that they will transition to the NDIS, or the National Disability Insurance Scheme. The key feature of the Commonwealth aged care reforms is the development of the single point of entry for all aged care services and service providers. This is called My Aged Care. You will see at the bottom of each of the slides that are to come, there will be a link where you can find out more information about each funding stream. There's lots of information on the Commonwealth's website about My Aged Care and what that means for people accessing the services and for service providers. Let's briefly look at the big picture. We have been mentioning this already. But the changing programs and the changing funding is part of the Commonwealth's broader agenda around driving person-centred care or consumer-directed care. The National Disability Insurance Scheme is being rolled out across the country, and in Victoria, this is currently happening throughout the rest of the year. This means that NDIS eligible consumers who've been receiving RDNS services may choose to remain with us, or they may choose other providers. You will notice that there will be lots of different language and concepts used depending on the program funder. In terms of the Commonwealth Home Support Program, we are funded to work in a wellness and reablement approach, which is very similar to how we managed in Victoria with the active service model approach. In the disability and packages space, you will hear increasing choices for people and about consumer-directed care. What all of these new programs have in common is that they are all trying to increase the consumer's participation in their care. The government wants the system to be consumer-focused and not so service-centric as it has been in the past. And we want to make sure that when we're working with people, they have choice, control, and flexibility. Think about services as if you or your family member was a person receiving our support. How would you or they like to be supported? We'll now have a look at the 9 key funding programs briefly, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail. Firstly, our main funded program, the Commonwealth Home Support Program, or CHSP, and RDNS is a grant recipient of the Commonwealth Home Support Program. That's the language used when an organisation has an agreement with the Commonwealth. So RDNS's largest funding is from the CHSP, so from the Commonwealth. You should be aware by now that the Commonwealth Home Support Program operates under a wellness and reablement model. What's different now under CHSP is that assessments are all done through a regional assessment service, which here in Victoria are all of our local governments. And that the ethos of this program is that it's there to provide small amounts of basic help to as many people, frail older people, as possible. Our organisation is required to report hours of care delivered through the Commonwealth DEX or data exchange, which is very similar to the minimum data set or MDS that we use under HAC. The other part of the old HAC funding is now the HAC program for younger people, as we talked about. A proportion of this funding comes from the state government, and it continues to fund organisations to work under an active service model approach. This work aligns absolutely with a wellness and reablement approach. The HAC PYP program is only in Victoria, and it's for people who are under 65. And we still report the hours delivered through the minimum data set. So you can see that our old HAC funding has been split into 75% CHSP, 25% HAC program for younger people based on age. However, the way we work with clients in both of these programs remains fundamentally the same. We've been working on the active service model approach in RDNS for many years now, and you should continue to do this work as it completely aligns with a wellness and reablement approach of the Commonwealth. The NDIS, or the National Disability Insurance Scheme, is for people with a permanent disability who require lifetime support. I'm sure all of you have heard about this by now. Organisations have to be registered to be a provider under the NDIS. So what's different? Clients are referred to as participants, and it is really about participant choice and consumer-directed care. The implication of the language here is purposefully supporting the client's choice and control over the services and providers they receive, rather than in the past where disability clients have been seen as recipients of services. The DVA Community Nursing Program has been operating for veterans over many years now, and there has been no change in what's happening under DVA, and the people who are eligible are either a white or gold card holder who require clinical nursing or personal care. The Veterans Home Care Program is also run from the Commonwealth Department of Veteran Affairs, and this is designed to provide small amounts of practical help to keep the person living at home, and is eligible for gold or white card holders, but not those with high care needs. We move on now to the HITH, or Hospital in the Home program, which is a Victorian Department of Health and Human Services program. And this provides care to people who are still admitted under the hospital, but who are well enough to come home and receive inpatient care at home. Home care packages is a Commonwealth program and a huge area of growth for the Commonwealth. We will see many, many more packages into the future. The unique feature of home care packages is that it puts the choice definitely in the client's hands, and it's all about increasing the person's choice and portability of their package. The HAC Response Service is a Victorian government program, and it supports people, regardless of age, who have a personal Alert Victoria alarm. In this program, RDNS staff support clients who don't have enough contacts to list on their own personal alert alarm emergency response. So we fill in the gaps to provide a safety net for clients living alone with minimal support. Post-acute care is something I'm sure many of you are aware of. It's been around for a long time. This program provides short-term support for people who are discharged from public hospitals in order to recuperate at home. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the contractual obligations for all of the funding, this specific eligibility for each funder, and just because somebody is eligible, which means you're in the target group, does not automatically mean entitlement to the service. So, for instance, just because you're over 65 doesn't automatically get CHSP funding. This is prioritised depending on the level of need of a person and the fact that this program is about delivering small amounts of care to as many people as possible, which is why we have a wellness and reablement approach, trying to keep people as independent as they can be. Some funders have very specific requirements around documentation of visit times, etc. For example, in post-acute care, we may be contracted for visits for around 30 minutes, 7 times a day for the person. And if there's a variation in what they need, this change has to be authorised by the PAC coordinator. Financial payments to RDNS differs depending on the funding source as well. So there's a combination. Some of the funders pay us in advance. Some of our funding comes from client contribution. And some funding programs, we have to invoice, so we don't get paid until after the care has been provided. You can see there is not one broad approach to all the funding programs. And this can make it really tricky for you nurses out in the field. But we really want to emphasise that at the beginning of the care episode, we need to get this all right. By selecting the right funder, you need to understand what that means for your care provision. We're going to focus now on each of the 9 programs in a little bit more detail. Firstly, the Commonwealth Home Support Program, which has been in operation in Victoria since July 2016. And all of the work that we have done under the Victorian Active Service Model is absolutely equal to what's required of us in a wellness and reablement approach under the CHSP. So in Victoria, we're really well placed here to provide wellness and reablement. The My Aged Care portal and website is about the Commonwealth Government having a simplified one point of entry for all aged care services. This is to simplify the system for clients and providers. A person's access to the CHSP is via My Aged Care or the MAC. And it's where a person is screened over the phone and then required to have an assessment, a face-to-face assessment by a home support assessor, either from a regional assessment service or RAS for a home support assessment, or from the ACAS, Aged Care Assessment Team, for a more comprehensive assessment, depending on the person's need. In Victoria, the assessors from the Regional Assessment Services and the ACAS are a highly qualified workforce with tertiary education. And they use the National Screening and Assessment Form, the NSAF, which collects relevant client and carer information. The National Screening and Assessment Form is a broad, holistic assessment tool and is completed, as we said, face-to-face in the person's home. At the end of the home support assessment, or ACAT assessment, the assessor develops a support plan. This support plan will include information about the person's goals, their current situation, and the services that they require. From this point, that referral is put to match and refer. What that means is then it's either allocated directly to a service provider, if that's what the client chooses, or it can be broadcast to a variety of providers. When we receive or accept a referral, we use the support plan to form the basis of our service-specific goal-oriented care. What's important to note here is that we have to have strong relationships between our service, the regional assessment services, and the ACAS, because our clients will be moving in between those services and we don't want to duplicate the assessment process. We don't want to annoy clients by asking them the same questions over again. So RDNS staff will have access to view information about the client on the MAC system. And in order to do this, you will need to have your own Oz key. So approximately 74% of our care currently is provided under the Commonwealth Home Support Program, and they are a large funder for RDNS. The key focus of the CHSP is to help frail older people remain at home, and it's there to support as much of the population as possible. It's also about getting care in a timely fashion and helps keep people independent or supports them to be able to manage at home. So under the CHSP program, we do look at opportunities to promote health and well-being and independence. The Commonwealth provides us with funding in advance to deliver this program, and in return, we have to meet targets that have been set around hours of care. If we don't meet these targets, we're required to return a proportion of our funding back to the Commonwealth. As we said before, the HAC program for younger people provides support for people under the age of 65. We receive this funding from the state government in advance, and we also have targets of hours of care that we need to meet. As with our old HAC funding, the program for younger people is delivered with a wellness and reablement focus, as was done with the active service model. In time, it is estimated that about 7% of people who are currently receiving HAC PYP will transition to the NDIS. That's quite a small amount of clients for us at the moment. The National Disability Insurance Scheme is different from the other funded programs. Services are not provided with funding. The client, or participant as they are known in the NDIS space, is provided with their allocation of funding. And the NDIS is an insurance model. It's similar to the TAC, which is an accident insurance model. The NDIS supports people with a permanent disability. People also have to be under 65 to be a participant on the NDIS. And when they hit their 65th birthday, they can choose whether or not they continue to participate with their NDIS provider or transfer over to the Commonwealth Home Support Program. It is important to understand that care can be requested either by the disability insurance scheme themselves or by the disability participant, and it must only be delivered on an agreement, and in the service agreement that describes the service that you'll be providing. You will see in this slide that the NDIS funds reasonable and necessary supports. This doesn't mean that we just provide anything the person is requesting. Provision of support still needs to be based on the nursing assessment of the person and the care needs. We don't just go in there and do something because it's been requested. If you require further information about the NDIS and how it's being implemented at RDNS, there will be a separate webinar based specifically on this program or this scheme for our staff. I'm sure all of you are very familiar with the Department of Veteran Affairs and the DVA Community Nursing Program. The program here also includes the Exceptional Case Unit, and it aims for independence and good health outcomes for eligible people. And in the DVA space, this applies to veterans themselves, their war widows or widowers, and they are known as the entitled person. They need to either hold a gold or white card. DVA operates on episodes of care, and everything for DVA is in 28-day cycles. Each of these 28-day cycles is allocated a code as per the DVA schedule of fees, and RDNS is remunerated as per this schedule. There is also the DVA Coordinated Veterans Care Program, which applies only to Gold Card veterans who have chronic and complex care needs. And this is about preventing them from going back into hospital. So we have a DVA team based here at Elmer Road, and they can assist with any queries around funding. Another component of the veterans funding is the DVA Veterans Home Care. It's one of their suite of programs that assists veterans with small amounts of practical help to keep them living independently at home. Predominantly, this is about domestic services, respite, and home help to remain safe, and also some home maintenance. So when we say that we can support with small amounts of care, when we say they can support small amounts of care for personal care, there is a limit of 1.5 hours per week for the veteran. We'll now look at the last three programs. Post-acute care is a fee-for-service program, and we get paid for this to provide specific care as requested by public hospitals. This program supports the person to recover at home rather than staying in hospital, and it helps with short-term care for people coming out of an acute public hospital. This referral will come directly to RDNS from a PAC coordinator or from our RDNS liaisons. And PAC is not age limited. At the end of the PAC episode, if the person still requires assistance, they may transfer to CHSP or to HAC program for younger people. The HIF, or Hospital in the Home program, has been developed from research which supports findings that people recover better at home and have fewer complications such as infections, delirium and confusion when they're at home rather than in hospital. When a person is being cared for under the HIF program, they are still considered to be an inpatient of the hospital and they remain under the care of the hospital doctor. Their hospitals set criteria for this program, and you often find this changes depending on the hospital. The Department of Health and Human Services in Victoria has set a base criteria, but many of the hospitals have slight variations, and this will be written into the person's contract for the program. There are certain requirements that all HIF clients must have, such as they must be clinically stable, have appropriate support at home, live in a suitable environment, have phone access, and have agreed to being treated at home as a voluntary inpatient. Home care packages. This really is one of the biggest growth areas in the sector at the moment. The Commonwealth Government sees packages as a way of implementing their increasing choices strategy. The change in package care means that the client who's been allocated a package can take their package no matter where they are in Australia. So this is about portability. Packages are no longer allocated to the service provider, so that means a client can choose and change providers as they desire. And it's also that if we're a provider of choice, there's no limit on the number of packages we can support. Therefore, funding follows the package care wherever it goes. Broadly speaking, levels 1 and 2 packages are similar to the Commonwealth Home Support Program and what's delivered under that for clients. In order to get a level 3 or 4 package, a person has to have been assessed by an ACAT. As we said, package care is a growing part of the community care options. And in time, we will see many, many more people. RDNS does now provide and support people on packages. For more information about this area, you should contact the Program's Operation Manager, Vivian Zientek. So we're nearly finished. This is the last program, and this is about the HAC response service. So again, this is a program that only occurs in Victoria, and it's funded by the Victorian State Government. RDNS provides assistance here for people who are using the Personal Alert Victoria alarm. And these are folk who perhaps don't have enough contacts or people in their life who live around them that can call in on them if they press their alarm. So RDNS provides care in that way. So we're supporting people to stay at home with a little bit of extra support. So you can see that at the start, we have lots of program and many specifics. You can't just make a blanket rule for all of our. So you can see that each program has specifics. You can't just make a blanket rule for all of our clients, so you need to be quite precise in allocating a funder and understanding what that actually means. Don't worry, if you don't remember every specific detail about each of these programs, you do have places you can get further information from. You just need to be aware that there are differences and that this difference has implications for the care you provide. This concludes the webinar, and you'll find more information on departmental websites and in IDNS policies. Thank you.